Hello, and welcome back to Movie Night with Mac, the show with my movie reviews and movie news. Today is the November episode, also known as the Glicked episode. This will be Gladiator II and Wicked. Starting off with my review of Gladiator II, Ridley Scott's sequel to Gladiator, starring Paul Mescal, Pedro Pascal, Denzel Washington, and more. So starting off, I liked the action a lot. It feels very real and tangible. One of my biggest complaints with the original Gladiator is the editing. I feel like a lot of the good action and the hard hits are lost in the cut, which really gets on my nerves. But here, I love how pretty much every hit and every jab is shown on the camera. There's one fight scene specifically that I loved. It's an indoor one-on-one duel, and it's very environmental. They're breaking vases over each other's heads and slamming each other into tables. There's rose petals all over the ground that stain the floor as they're sliding around and fighting. Really just great choreography and directing. Dare I say, some of the best action of the year, probably right under Dune Part 2. I think what puts the action of Gladiator 2 above a typical blockbuster is the choreography for sure. A downfall of what I see in the fight choreography of lots of action movies, whether it be Marvel or Star Wars or whatnot, is that when you have a large group battle or a fight with lots of extras, and the extras are really just waiting for their turn to be hit. But I thought the fights and the battles of Gladiator 2 were done very well. It felt really realistic and suspenseful. Also, on a technical level, I thought the sound design was fantastic. Obviously, there's lots of metal clanging around, but also catapults and bow and arrows, echoing screams in the Colosseum. There's a couple different scenes involving water and fighting in water, and I think it all sounds great, especially in a theater. In my opinion, the set designs were magnificent. The cinematography, I think, was also great. Some scenes are a little desaturated, but for the most part, the reds and the golds really pop off of the screen. Some great uses of lighting and shots that are just absolutely stunning. I mean, let us not forget this is Ridley Scott we're talking about here. However old he may be, he still knows how to make a great blockbuster. And honestly, my biggest complaint with the film is that I don't think it really stands alone as its own film very well. I guess it's kind of to be expected with a sequel, but it really just spends so much time with plot lines and references to the original Gladiator that it occasionally loses focus of the great fresh material that they're working with. And some of it I enjoyed. I really loved the first movie, so some of the callbacks I really liked, but a lot of it is either an unnecessary twist or just straight up nostalgia bait, like, oh, he's feeling dirt, he's feeling the sand in his hands in the arena, just like Maximus. Remember when Maximus did that in the first movie? And like, for a film that really needs to keep its momentum going between action-packed scenes, it just struggles to balance the new screenwriting with the callbacks to the original movie. I also thought the acting was very great. I've seen some controversy around Paul Mescal. Some people thought he was miscast. I didn't get that impression at all. I'm not very familiar with his work. I know he's been in more emotional films, so I can see how that's a little off-putting to see him in a role like this, which is so violent and so different from maybe some of the other stuff he's been in. But I thought he was great. I also thought Pedro Pascal was great. Really, both of them just have extremely great screen presence. But really the standout for me, unsurprisingly, is Denzel Washington. I mean, he is a master at what he does. I think not only does he have the best performance of the film, I also just think his character is the most interesting, and his character arc and how we are introduced to him and how he is portrayed throughout the film really just was very engaging and one of my favorite parts of the movie. But I was really, really glad I got to check out Gladiator II, especially in the theater. Not quite as good as the original, but I still think it's a great film. I'll give it 4 out of 5 stars. And joining me to discuss the historical side of Gladiator II is a fellow UABtv creator. You may know her from her show as a former history major. It is Kendall. Kendall, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I will, for the most part, let you take it away with the historical side because that is not particularly my wheelhouse.
All right.
But as far as ancient Rome and the setting of Gladiator II, what can you say about the history behind that and the succession of the emperor and stuff like that? Do you have anything to share?
Yeah, okay. So before I get started, I would just like to say to all the lovely, lovely folks at home that I enjoyed this movie from an artistic standpoint. And people are always like, oh, it doesn't have to be historically accurate. Like, oh my God, why can't you just enjoy the movie? I did enjoy the movie. Like, shut up. I loved the movie. It was a fun movie, fun fight scenes, fun, cute stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just here to talk about the history side of it. That doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the movie. Am I about to put them on blast, though, for a second? Yes, I am. So we go from Gladiator, and that is Marcus Aurelius, and he is, like, killed by his son in the first movie, isn't he? He's, like, smothered to death by, like, Joaquin Phoenix. He's, like, and that's Commodus, right?
Yes,
okay.
Pretty much.
Okay. So in real life, Marcus Aurelius died from the plague. And it was, like, conspired that he was, like, poisoned by, like, his physicians, maybe, but not his son. Like, actually, he, like, co-ruled with his son, Commodus.
Oh.
So I'm gonna go through, like, kind of, like, what actually happened in, like, the whole succession thing, because, like, we watched Gladiator. It ends with Commodus, and then we pick up in Gladiator 2, and then suddenly there's these two brothers. And, like,
Right.
Where did the brothers come from? Like,
Right.
what happened in the meantime?
I was wondering that as well.
Yeah, so I'm gonna fill us in on that. So Commodus, which is played by Joaquin Phoenix in the first movie,
Right.
he actually is like this crazy, wicked, bloodthirsty guy. He ascended the throne when he was like 18 years old. He was just bloodthirsty. He didn't even care about the throne. He didn't care about ruling Rome at all. He just was so crazy and just focused on being a gladiator. He's like the only Roman emperor that was a gladiator. So he fought in 735 gladiator contests.
Oh.
And the Senate was like, okay, we got to get him out of here, dude. So it's like 192 CE. And Gladiator is set in 180 CE, roughly, around that like time period. So in 192 CE, he's strangled to death by some guy named Narcissus. And so after that, there's a succession crisis. And I'm about to comprise a lot of information in a short amount of time. But if you are like seriously interested in this, just Google like year of the 5 emperors. So in this 1 year, in like 193 CE, there's 5 different guys that come up after Commodus. There's this guy named Pertinax, and he's like elected to the throne. He's assassinated after 3 months. They're like, hey, get this guy out of here. There's this other guy called Didius Julianus. He's assassinated after 3 months. And then there's this guy who's important to us because he's the father of the 2 brothers that we get to see in Gladiator 2. His name is Septimus Severus. So after this Didius Julianus guy gets killed, he's declared emperor by the Senate, right? But there's this other guy called Pescennius Niger, and he's like, no, screw you, I have beef with you because you killed Didius Julianus. That was my friend. I'm emperor now. So then Septimus Severus and Pescennius Niger go to war. And while we're doing this, Severus appoints this other guy called Claudius Albinus as his it's a mess. Anyways, Septimus Severus wins. He is this big guy. He like does like all this like really cool reforms for Rome. They really like him. Boom, he dies.
And he's the father of the 2 sons.
Yes, he is the father of the 2 sons, Caracalla and Gaeta, who we get to see as the guy from Stranger Things, another
Joseph
guy.
Quinn.
Yes, and what's the other guy?
I don't remember.
I don't know. He
Henry
played
something?
Yeah,
Maybe?
he's Caracalla. But yeah, that's the 2 guys that we see. So in the movie, they're twins, but in real life, they're brothers who are only separated by 1 year. Just like in the movie, Caracalla does get Gaeta killed. And he like kills him in front of his mom. It's like this big thing. Cary completely takes control, and he actually ends up being kind of a pretty good emperor. Like he like establishes all sorts of like new reforms. Like if you were like a free man, you were automatically declared to like have Roman citizenship, which was like a big thing that he did. Anyways, he gets assassinated.
Oh, all right.
And just like in the movie, Macrinus, who is amazingly played by Denzel Washington.
Right.
Denzel Washington's version of Macrinus, like the movie's version of Macrinus, wasn't actually that guy. He didn't actually raise an army. He didn't actually have all this, like, you know, I don't know, but he did kind of conspire to
It's just Denzel Washington's power.
Yeah, literally. But he did actually conspire to, like, take out Caracalla. Like, I don't know if he killed him himself like he did in the movie. Like, that was a bit dramatic, but he probably was the guy that was behind it. And that's okay, because he didn't even last a few months, because he was killed in a civil war overthrowing after that. But yeah, if you were wondering how that actually historically happened, that is the actual succession during that time period.
Well, there you go. So, with the movie, are there any, like, historical inaccuracies that you found that might have bothered you?
Oh boy, let's get into it. Not that they bothered me, but I'm just saying from like a historical perspective, what are we doing? So let's go from the beginning, and let's go from like the super fun, crazy stuff that I'll excuse because it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
You know, ships on water in the arena. All right, so we do know that there was draining systems, and we do know that they did put water in the arena. It probably was only to the level of your ankles, probably. I mean, they did it more for like decoration.
Right.
And having actual ships that are going so fast that they crash into each other and people are just getting murdered by everything, that didn't really happen. But there was something called Naumachia, which was like a miniature like naval battle. It was more of like a historical like recreation, like theater type thing. And did people actually die? Yes. Like they literally would like set it up like an ancient Greek and Persian fight. Like, here are the Greeks, here are the Persians. It's just a bunch of guys who are condemned to death and they're forced to kill each other.
Right.
But probably it was more like a boat on wheels that people like pushed. It was like a theatrical thing, and they like staged it out, and like one side had to win. Anyways, like they weren't actually fighting each other to the death in these big waters. And while we're talking about water, let's talk about sharks.
Oh, yeah.
You know, people are like, you know, the Romans could fill it up with water. I'm sure they could get sharks. I'm like, yeah, but let's think about it. Like, how would they be able to keep a shark alive and wheel the sharks into the thing? And there's no historical evidence of any sharks at all in the historical record, but there are a lot about crocodiles.
Okay.
So maybe if they would have done crocodiles, that would have been more historically accurate, but I see how sharks are more entertaining to watch.
Right.
But they did source Nile crocodiles. Those are found all throughout the historical record. Yeah.
Nice.
And while we're also talking about like fighting in the arena, rhinos.
I was wondering about that, the rhinos.
Yeah, rhinos. So there is one piece of historical evidence of a rhino in the Colosseum, and that was written by the Roman poet Martial, and he wrote about a single-horned Indian rhino in 80 AD. So 80 AD is the year that the Colosseum was built. Not built, but it was like opened up to the people.
Right.
So there was a rhino, and like when they first opened it up, there was like 100 days of ceremonies where they would kill all these animals. So the rhino like fought other animals, but there's no historical context or anything
No one riding on a
of
rhino.
a guy riding on a rhino and just killing people. But that's so fun to watch. Like I appreciate that. Even as a history lover, I'm like, okay, that was really cool, you know. And that's things that we can kind of, you know, like move past. And my last point that I'm going to be wrapping us up today is this thing really got me, because, you know, we're making a movie. We can gloss over those fun, crazy stuff. It's just that, you know, we're walking into this scene and we're seeing Macrinus and his friend, and his friend's just holding a newspaper, reading a newspaper. That was so preventable. Why did we put a newspaper in an ancient Roman movie? Like, that was just so, and it's like printed ink.
He's like flipping through
he's like,
like it's not a scroll, it is a full-on
and they made it a whole
newspaper.
scene. Like, he was like, oh, this happened in the news. What are you talking about? I don't know. Okay, if you are a history nerd, you know that the printing press was not invented until 1440 CE. That is over 1,400 years after where this movie is set. But, you know, in Rome, there was actually something called an acta diurna, and that was just like a guy like writing down like all of like the important like official matters and things that the people should know, and they would like move the stone into like the middle of the city, and that was like the daily news. They did that every day.
Okay.
And maybe if they were really wanted to go crazy with the news, they could have done that. Or maybe the guy could have had like a wax tablet, which is really what they used to write stuff down. And there was a wax tablet that was held by Lucia, is that her name? The wife and the mother. She has one at one point.
Okay.
And that was really interesting to see. I really liked that. But, you know, if we wanted the guy to fiddle his hands with something, he could have had that. Just a newspaper? Like what? Anyways.
I didn't even catch that. That
yeah,
is
it
crazy.
was just I was literally, I don't even know if you can put like a clip of it from the movie like on the screen, but like that, I was just like, what are we doing? And there's also another scene. Okay, this is my last point.
Yeah,
there's like another scene where she's like, the mom is like hiding away, and you know she's having to run, and so she like goes up to a wall, like a paved wall, and pushes in one of the bricks like magically, and then just a magic door opens, and she just can walk down this secret hallway. I was like, what mechanisms are being used to have this secret door work? So it flowed like nothing. I was like, okay, whatever. At that point, I was like, okay, you know, we might as well make it a magical movie. Like, anyways. But I loved the movie so much. I had so much fun watching it, and that's all my annoying history points for today.
There you go. What would you give it out of 5 stars? Since I gave my review, what would you give it?
Well, what did you give it?
I'm not telling you.
You can't tell me?
Unbiased review.
Okay, so I think on Letterboxd I gave it a 3.5.
Okay.
Because it was fun to watch, it was entertaining. I don't know about the storyline and stuff, but I did have so much fun watching it. I think that's what I gave it.
I gave it a 4.
Okay,
So,
okay.
there we go.
Okay, see, I'm not a movie expert, but I got close.
Well,
I got
neither
close.
am I.
Yeah.
You know, it's
And
opinionated.
I'm not even a history major. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
thank you for having me.
That was some great information. I'm really glad you could share that with us.
Thank you.
Hope to have you back at some point.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, and the other half of Glicked that we'll be getting into is, of course, Wicked. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. I loved it, even. It was so much better than I was expecting. I don't even know really what I was expecting, but I really liked it, and I have a lot to say. Starting with the obvious, the music is just insanely good. I knew very little about Wicked going in, so a lot of these songs were completely new to me, but Cynthia Erivo just carries so much power in her voice as Elphaba, especially in the songs near the end. Defying Gravity, obviously amazing, but The Wizard and I became a personal favorite of mine just because of her vocal range throughout it and her acting in the scene. Her songs just feel so triumphant and grand. I'm not super familiar with the other actresses' portrayals of Elphaba on Broadway, but after seeing this movie, it's hard to imagine anyone else other than Cynthia Erivo. She fits into the role so naturally. Ariana Grande is also unsurprisingly fabulous as Glinda. She shows lots of range in her vocal abilities with lots of opera-like high notes throughout the film. Popular is probably one of my favorite songs of the film, maybe because it's really one of the ones that I had an actual frame of reference for. But I think this song is where Ariana Grande shines the most, both in her singing and her acting. Lots of humor and fun, and not to mention the editing and the cinematography is great for the popular scene. Also, Peter Dinklage and Jeff Goldblum have their own songs, which really took me by surprise, but they sounded really good. Apparently the cast sang live on set as well, which makes the songs just sound so good, and it's just so impressive. I'll say, I'm not very well versed in musical theater or music in general, so I wish I could give a more knowledgeable praise or critique, but to me it sounded absolutely fantastic. And while I'm on the topic of the cast, I want to point out the humor of the film, which I kind of touched on already, specifically Ariana Grande. In my opinion, she is hilarious as Glinda. The way she becomes the dainty, airheaded quote-unquote popular girl just brings so much humor and life into the writing. Some of the written jokes are a little on the nose, like, what just happened? I didn't get my way, for example. But it's less what she says and more how she says it that brings the humor. The cadence in her voice, but also her physical comedy and body language made me laugh quite a lot in the first half of the film. Towards the end, I don't think the comedy works quite as well. It's like I can definitely see how it's important to keep Glinda in the scenes near the end, but I don't think her style of humor that she brings fits in well during the more climactic scenes towards the end of the movie. So now to talk about one of the biggest criticisms of the film, the cinematography, more specifically the color grading. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. It's definitely pretty pale at times. It's pretty desaturated, especially in outdoor scenes during the daytime. It's extremely bright, and the colors don't pop as well as they should. And while that may be a big deal for many people, it's not really something that concerns me too much. There's lots of very rich, colorful scenes that I think aren't being appreciated enough. I think the trailers and the snippets just gave people a bad first impression. And, maybe rightfully so, because they were not really showing off everything the film has to offer color-wise and just from the art department in general. Also, going back to the music a little bit, the dance sequences and the cinematography are incredible. It's a really great stage to screen adaptation just because of the set extensions and the way the camera weaves through the ensemble during large choreographed numbers. It's stunning. And the editing as well during montages and smaller scale duets, it's just really creative and so much fun to experience. I will say, just in my opinion, I was a little let down by Defying Gravity, which is the only other song that I was familiar with going in. But don't get me wrong, Cynthia Erivo is spectacular, and this is her best performance of the film from a vocal standpoint, by far. But I didn't love the visuals to pair it with. The effect of her flying just didn't look that great to me. It didn't work for me that well, which I feel like is equally important as the singing. When you're gonna have singing from an actress that's so talented and a song that is so triumphant, it just feels, it takes you out of it a little to have visuals that don't add up or pair up as well. Now I could say much more about Wicked, but I think that's enough for now. Once again, I'm not exactly a musical theater expert nor a Wicked fanatic, so this was 100% my rookie review, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Now, since this has been a long episode already with special guests and lengthy reviews and whatnot, I don't think I'll be doing any news for today, but I will wrap up with just some December releases to look forward to in the next month or so. Starting off with Y2K, a comedy horror sci-fi movie from A24. Also, Kraven the Hunter, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson. There's also Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Mufasa the Lion King, a prequel to the live-action Lion King from a couple years ago. There's also Nosferatu, a horror movie directed by Robert Eggers, starring Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, and Lily Rose Depp. And finally, A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic starring Timothée Chalamet. Thank you so much for listening to this month's episode. Stay tuned for my opinions on these December releases, and have a wonderful day.